Islamic values and traditions, which respects the rights of people, which respects democracy and justice.
At the end of the session, delegates decided to order an international investigation into events in Libya that could lead to prosecutions for war crimes or crimes against humanity. Nick Spicer, AlJazeera, Geneva.
Well, in Egypt, where demonstrations forced Hosni Mubarak from power 2 weeks ago, soldiers have been clashing with protesters in front of parliament. Police beat demonstrators and used taser stun guns to suppress the crowds. Thousands have also been rallying in Tahrir Square. Demonstrators there say the military leadership isn't making political reforms fast enough. Well, in Tunisia, there's been a so-called day of rage against the interim government. Thousands of demonstrators demanded the resignation of former loyalists to the deposed president. Al Jazeera's James Bays is in Tunis.
There are thousands of people here. It's estimated this is the biggest protest in Tunisia since Ben Ali was forced to flee from this country. People here say that the protests have moved to other countries, the protests that were first started here in Tunisia, and in some ways they feel that this country has been forgotten. They say their revolution is an unfinished one.
We are here because we believe that the dictator has gone, but dictatorship is still here. The system of dictatorship is still ruling right now.
If Ghannouchi is still here, because that means Ben Ali is here also. We are all the way again in injustice. We are suffering again because Ghannouchi is the same like Ben Ali.
You got rid of Ben Ali. Tell me why you are still protesting.
Because the system is the same. Nothing has changed. The dictator is gone, but dictatorship is still here.
It's now some 6 weeks since Ben Ali was forced to leave this country. The protests after he left were relatively small, people unhappy with the Prime Minister Ghannouchi. Well, now those protests are growing again. This is the largest protest in Tunisia since the fall of Ben Ali, and it shows you that even though the world's attention is now on Libya, in some of those countries that have already had revolution, things are far from over. James Bays, Al Jazeera, Tunis.
Well, Al Jazeera has obtained pictures of what appears to be police firing at protesters in the Iraqi city of Al-Fallujah. Across Iraq, demonstrations against corruption and the lack of basic services turned deadly during demonstrations on Friday. Well, after controversy over how she handled the crisis in Tunisia, the latest reports from France say the foreign minister is set to resign. Michel Alliot-Marie accepted flights in a business jet owned by a supporter of the ousted Tunisian president. Unnamed French ministers have been quoted as saying she could be replaced by the defense minister, Alain Juppé. Well, there's been a high turnout for the general election in Ireland. The leader of the opposition party is hoping he'll be the next leader. Enda Kenny urged voters to turn their anger into action over Ireland's humiliating economic collapse. The governing party is bracing for an election rout. The United Nations is warning that Côte d'Ivoire is on the brink of sliding back into civil war. Post-election fighting between supporters of rival presidential candidates Alassane Ouattara and Laurent Gbagbo is escalating. Well, thousands of people have fled the economic capital, Abidjan. Police in Mexico have discovered the bodies of 3 people related to a human rights activist who was killed last year. The family claims it has been targeted by soldiers since reporting human rights abuses in Ciudad Juarez. Amnesty International has urged the Mexican government to do more to protect the safety of those speaking out against abuse. In New Zealand, violent aftershocks are shaking the shattered city of Christchurch. 123 people are now confirmed killed in Tuesday's earthquake. That total is expected to rise further because more than 200 people are still missing. Search teams from 6 countries have flown in to help local rescuers, but no survivors have been found since Wednesday. The Cricket World Cup is underway and Sri Lanka takes on Pakistan in just a few hours. Matches are being hosted in India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. But even though it's a heavy hitter, Pakistan won't be co-hosting any of the games. Zain Basravi investigates why.
World Cup glory. Now, anyone can have it. Cricket Power is the first PC cricket game ever developed in Pakistan. The official World Cup game is something millions of fans around the world look forward to. For the company that won the rights to make the game, it's a commercial coup. And for this cricket-crazy nation, another way to get in on the action. Pakistan may be having a perfect innings in the digital world, but things aren't going so well in the real world. Here in Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, there is a tournament going on. Teams from across the country, some of the top players in Pakistan, are competing for a national title. But as you can see, the stadium is completely empty, and that's because it's too difficult to get the security needed to fill the seats. After the Sri Lankan team was attacked in 2009, Pakistan became a no-go country for international matches. Recent spot-fixing scandals have also been a setback. Cricket in this country has suffered financially. Cricket fans in Pakistan have suffered emotionally.
It's a big, big loss. Pakistan is a cricket-frenzy nation. Cricket is a passion here. I mean, everybody follows that. And not being able to host the World Cup here, which was originally planned for Pakistan, part of it. So that is a big loss in cricketing terms.
For most of the fans in Pakistan, this is the best way to enjoy the sport. Good old-fashioned street cricket. On any given Sunday, anywhere in Pakistan, even in weather like this, anywhere becomes a cricket pitch, and all you need to become a neighborhood legend is a bat and a ball. Dozens of teams are playing on the same pitch at the same time. In Pakistan, cricket is more than a sport, it's a passion. And the love of the game is keeping people here optimistic.
Security concerns have hurt the game, but we hope someday the World Cup is played here. And this year, we want Pakistan to win.
Pakistani fans will have to tune in on TV or online to watch the 2011 World Cup, but real die-hard fans of the sport will be on the streets, hoping maybe one day they'll be the ones to bring the World Cup home. Zain Basravi, Al Jazeera, Lahore.
Well, a filmmaker on a mission for justice is out to shed some light on the murders of American civil rights activists in the 1960s. With witnesses getting older, evidence gathering dust, well, time is ticking on these so-called cold cases. But as Rob Reynolds explains, a new series hopes to help authorities solve crimes long forgotten to all but some.
A new series on the American cable network Investigation Discovery digs into unsolved murders from the U.S. civil rights movement era.
Someone knows what happened.
Filmmaker Keith Beauchamp is working in tandem with the FBI to uncover new evidence from cold case files.
I think it's extremely important to revisit these murder cases and hopefully get justice in some way for the families and closure.
The first program is about a case from 1967. Civil rights activist Warless Jackson of Natchez, Mississippi was driving home from work when a bomb wired into his truck detonated, killing him instantly. His son heard the explosion and rode his bike to the scene.
Several people already there. When I made it there, it was just like he was laying in the street. Shoes blown off on the truck, just all mangled.
The FBI case file on Jackson's murder runs to thousands of pages, but no suspects were ever arrested.
Mr. Westbrook?
Beauchamp confronted an alleged former Ku Klux Klansman implicated in previous bombings.
Never heard nothing about that, no.
The FBI is investigating over 100 unsolved cases from the era. A senior African-American congressman says he's not satisfied with their progress.
These cases, they should have been solved some time ago.
Beauchamp hopes his films will shake loose new evidence or witnesses before it's too late.
This is a race against time. You know, each day that passes by, perpetrators die off and witnesses die off. We don't have that much longer to go.
Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera.
In Brazil, a baby girl has made a remarkable recovery after her parents' car plunged into a river. 1-year-old Crystal apparently spent 20 minutes underwater before being pulled out and given the kiss of life. Well, after an anxious wait, rescuers cheered her seemingly miraculous recovery. She's now in intensive care in hospital. Police are trying to establish what caused the crash. This is Al Jazeera, and these are the stories making the headlines now. In Libya, protests are entering their 9th day. They've been gaining more support from inside and outside the country. These pictures appear to show soldiers switching sides in Zawiya. They're welcomed by jubilant protesters. But others have been fired upon. These pictures are from Tripoli, where another crackdown began after Friday prayers. Elsewhere in the capital, the Libyan leader addressed supporters in person, promising to fight to hang on to power. The international community has been weighing in, sanctions now coming from the US and NATO, plus a call for action from the UN chief. And an appeal too from Gaddafi's son, calling for the EU to send a team to the country.
I personally urge the Europeans to send fact-finding mission to Libya as soon as possible, because we are not afraid of facts. We are worried about rumors and lies, because facts are on our side.
Well, people fleeing Libya have found sanctuary on the nearby island of Malta. A US-chartered ferry carrying around 300, mostly US citizens, finally arrived in Valletta. Malta's hotels are already reported to be full of people who fled Libya by air. In Egypt, where demonstrations forced Hosni Mubarak from power 2 weeks ago, soldiers have now clashed with protesters in front of Parliament building. Police beat demonstrators and used taser stun guns to suppress the crowds. Thousands have also been rallying in Tahrir Square. Demonstrators say the military leadership isn't making political reforms fast enough. In New Zealand, violent aftershocks are shaking the shattered city of Christchurch. Prime Minister John Key has been meeting search teams from 6 countries that have flown in to help. 123 people are now confirmed killed in Tuesday's earthquake. Well, that total is expected to rise further because more than 200 people are still missing. Well, the United Nations is warning that Côte d'Ivoire is on the brink of sliding back into civil war. Post-election fighting between supporters of rival presidential candidates Alassane Ouattara and Laurent Gbagbo is escalating. Thousands of people have fled the economic capital, Abidjan. And those are the headlines. The news continues here on Al Jazeera after Across the Shouting Valley. Stay with us.
Information travels in many ways. Opinions constantly formed. Knowledge passes and it